Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar focusing on data analytics in digital learning, focusing particularly on Lightspeed's Digital Insight product. Despite the pandemic being a thing of the past, we still do like to start promptly. However, you know how these things tend to be, and we know in the first couple of minutes on the hour, we do tend to get quite a few people joining in late. And just to make sure that they get the full experience, we're going to wait just a couple of minutes and a moments for them. So a last chance to get up off your seat and grab a drink or grab something so that you can sit and listen and hopefully learn and hear some interesting facts about what the Lightspeed Digital Insight product might be able to do for your school, your multi-academy trust, your local authority, your commune, a wide plethora of people in the audience today. Either way, we're looking forward to getting started. Sean and I will be back in just a couple of minutes, and we will get things kicked off. Thanks so much for joining us. See you in just a few secs. There is a good handful of people who've joined us in the last 60 to 90 seconds or so, and you're probably wondering why it's awfully quiet in here. We're just giving everyone another 60 or so seconds, just another minute, and then we will get ourselves off and running. Don't worry, your sound and everything is working properly. We are going to get kicked off here really, really soon. Okay then, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us. It is interesting to see the numbers jump in that last couple of minutes. John, I do wonder if we're going to get known as the people, the webinar 3-minuters, who always start just a few minutes late. And what that'll do is just move everyone back another further couple of minutes, knowing it'd be fine. I can join Colin and Sean even just a few minutes later. Hopefully not. But thank you.
Hopefully we don't keep you for 3 minutes longer at the end anyhow, but I think we're starting to grow that reputation for
we do have a pedigree for that. We will try. But thank you so much for sharing another 30, 33, 40 minutes with us so we can talk specifically about Digital Insight and present to you why we're so excited about it as a product and as a solution that really can help educators and education groups and authorities to be able to make the most of the digital investments that they make, digital learning investments that they make, I should say. So my name's Colin McCabe. I'm the International Director at Lightspeed Systems, overseeing everything that we do outside of the US. And I'm joined by my able colleague, Sean, who looks after all of our largest UK accounts here in the British Isles, and a part of the wonderful team that we have at Lightspeed here based in the UK. And as I say, we are going to be focusing particularly around data analytics and that idea of the information that you can get, the data that we can get to be able to support digital learning. And we'll get onto that in a minute, but I appreciate that there are definitely names in the audience that I don't recognize, not existing Lightspeed customers. There's definitely ones that we do. Hello to all of you. Pleasure to see so many existing customers as well. But I thought it would be useful, as we often do, just to really start off by giving a bit of an introduction to Lightspeed themselves. Often we're known for one of the solutions that we perhaps provide to your school, we provide to your organization, but very few necessarily can really have the full picture of the breadth and scale at which we operate globally. So that's in 41 countries, and it rounds up and it goes through all of those devices to cover well over 20 million students. We add the plus because it fluctuates, obviously, and even across this year, we know we've added it. I'm delighted to be serving more than another 2 million students that we've brought on board even this year, which is phenomenal that we're able to protect and support and to help schools get an increased amount of value from the technology that they are introducing into the classroom experience. And that's crucial to us. That education focus is everything to what we do at Lightspeed. We don't have products that go elsewhere into other markets. We develop things that solely work for K-12. And we aim, and everything we do with our product design and the incredible work that team and our development teams do to make sure that what we are doing is writing at the cutting edge of an industry leading as to what we need and what everyone in education needs to be able to support the technology infrastructure that goes into school. And of course, designing that needs to make sure that we consider security. We will talk today a little bit about the data that we can uncover to help you maintain cybersecurity and the security of your infrastructure. But please be rest assured that we think about that at every step of our product lifecycle and our interactions with our clients and our customers to make sure that everything we're doing looks after the most important people in education, which are the students, and in this case, the data and the security of their access to the internet and to general tools for digital learning. And of course, I've mentioned students, I've mentioned our education focus. They are the most important people to us. They do quite often when we're brainstorming, our solutions can get caught a little bit higher, and we need to make sure that everything that we are doing is focused on improving the student learning experience. I think Digital Insight in particular is one aspect that does a great job of that. We talk at times about building the blocks of security and infrastructure and aspects so we can get to that student learning point. And Digital Insight is really at the top of that pinpoint of that pyramid about how we can make sure that we are making a difference to students. Digital Insight, we're going to talk about today, sits within our solutions portfolio. There are 5 solutions in there, which, as I said at the beginning, you're likely to know us for one or other, maybe a couple. Brilliant if you are. We have a long, strong following with our mobile device management tools in the UK and across Scandinavia. Many of our customers will know us from Lightspeed Filter and increasingly Lightspeed Alert, based on the latest Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance. That is something we have seen an awful lot of our multi-academy trusts in England take up. Not so well known at times here in the UK, but increasingly we've grown our client base 3 times by 3x that this year alone in our classroom management efforts, being able to share screens and see all of the aspects of what is happening on a classroom by classroom level, and really giving teachers back that little bit of that control that they perhaps need whenever they are first integrating with digital technology in their classroom. But that does leave us to focus and center on Lightspeed Digital Insight. So the newest solution to our product lineup actually has been with us about a year, is based on an incredible tool that we acquired and brought into our Lightspeed family from a company called CatchOn. We previously did have a data analytics product, and then we actually got talking to CatchOn and seen that they were on a very, very similar path, technology-wise and particularly mission-wise, of what they were trying to achieve. And it made sense to join forces so that we could bring it to a wider audience. And here we are, Sean and I, with Digital Insight on the slide, talking to a wider audience. And that's one of the key things that we are trying to do, is to sort of talk about the art of the possible today. What we often see when we talk to potential clients, we talk to schools about the power of Digital Insight. This is getting access to data points that they just can't get anywhere else. Or if they can, they get it a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit everywhere. And Lightspeed Digital Insight brings it together in what could be for some a real big time-saving tool, could be for others a real amount of insight, if you pardon me, leaning on that word a little bit too much, insight into what's actually happening with the software and in the actual learning in individual classrooms across a group of schools. There's so many different use cases. What we're going to do today, between Sean and myself, is we're going to talk you through 5 of the most prominent ones that we have. All the aim here is that we're always trying to make sure that we're making data-informed decisions on digital learning. My background is based up in Scotland, although perhaps you can hear more of a Northern Irish twang in my accent. But I've led a local authority through a digital transformation project with very few and very scant actual hard statistical measures that I could put in place to be able to measure the effectiveness of that particular transformation. It was a one-to-one device program, and that's why that's at the top there. Digital Insight will absolutely be able to support you making some decisions about what devices are being used and how. But likewise, it can do that for software too. So are we actually using the software that we are paying for and potentially writing large checks year over year for? But we're writing those large checks. If we're using them, great. If we're not, well, can we streamline them? There's something we can do. The bottom 2 there, which are really key, we're probably going to lean a little bit longer on some of those as well. The idea of, as we move towards a society where digital equity is really essential, is it's all very well us giving out a device, but how do we know that our students are actually able to use that device when they go home? Where our teachers are setting learning tasks that need to be completed outside of school hours on a digital device, but the reality is we've just handed the device and we have very few statistical tools to help support connectivity. So we'll come back to that one as we look at that one. And the bottom one, we mentioned security at the beginning, but understanding what software is being used is absolutely the first step to us understanding how we can protect our students' privacy and how we can make sure that the information that we are responsible for as a data controller isn't going here, there, and everywhere. So that's the kind of 5 pillars that we're going to talk about today. And we'll sort of tag team back in and out. And I'm going to hand you over to Sean just a second. He's going to kick us off with them. We'll run through in order. So Sean, you're up for one-to-one devices and looking at this device measurement first.
Yeah, certainly am. We've spoken about it before in similar sessions where we've spent a long time within education deploying devices into the classroom and providing tools to students to positively impact their learning experience. But we've not really spent that much time truly looking into the usage of these devices and the usage around the tools that are being implemented on those particular devices. The great thing about the reports within the Digital Insight solution is that we can create anything that we want by utilizing the tags that are associated to applications, which Colin will spend a bit more time talking about in a moment or so. But it's truly those tags that allow us to create any report that we need to kind of gain the information that we need based on our particular role or our particular responsibilities on a daily basis. The agent is also able to recognize what particular operating system is being used as well. So we can drill down into those kind of details and truly find out, well, as an organization, which operating system is being used most. And many organizations that we've worked with over the last 12 months have utilized this at the early stages of their one-to-one project. At the start of that kind of project, they've got Windows devices, they've got Chrome devices, they've got iOS devices, and they truly don't know which operating system a students truly engage in most with. But by, again, utilizing this particular solution, we're able to really drill down into certain reports to identify that, okay, it's this particular operating system that our students seem to be engaging far more with. We might want to kind of evaluate that in a bit more detail moving forward within our particular one-to-one journey, which is really, really fascinating stuff. If we jump into the next slide, our goal is to make troubleshooting far more streamlined and more simplified as well. A lot of the underlying messages that we kind of present within our software is that we want it to be as proactive as possible. We want to make sure that you're aware of when there's a particular issue and how that issue has occurred or what could be contributing to that particular issue. So within the digital equity module, you have the ability to really eliminate the manual effort and the uncertainty when it comes to troubleshooting. You'll be able to drill down into user and their particular device usage to, again, kind of view high level statistics that could be contributing to particular issues that users experiencing on their particular device. You'll see details that we can see on the screen right now based around the memory, the storage, the internet speed, and even like connectivity status as well. But whatever is affecting that particular device and the performance, through the troubleshooting capabilities within the solution, you'll be able to identify those issues and ultimately rectify them as quickly as possible, so you can then ultimately spend far more time on other tasks as opposed to troubleshooting that particular device and the issue that's associated with that particular device.
What I really love, Sean, is that it fits at every stage of that one-to-one program. You know, there's schools, and I recognize some of the names in the list here of people who I know are just at the beginning of that journey. They're thinking, how do I get started? And, you know, the use case I would say here is that, well, gather the understanding of how is digital actually being used. Where are the strong use cases across your schools or your groups, or even just within an individual school? Who are going to be those champions based on what they are doing in the classroom with their students, rather than necessarily what they portray in a staff meeting or what you've heard on the grapevine, et cetera, et cetera. But it rolls the whole way right through to people who are already deploying one-to-one and are thinking about device refresh. And you've got to try and decide, you know, was that particular model of Chromebook the right one? Do we have a little bit of a mix here? Hang on a minute. For some reason in this subject, they much preferred using the Windows PC Lab to complete learning tasks. And that meant that one-to-one device was in the student's bag that whole lesson. That's interesting. Let's dig in a little bit there. And I think that's a really key sort of sentence and statement that we love to hear with Digital Insight. That's interesting. Let's dig in a little bit here. And completely with devices is one area where we see that a lot. But you know, we are aware that device management tools do get some level of device information. But where we start to really get into that's interesting, let's dig in a little more, is around what we're doing with applications. So just like we've talked about measuring the effectiveness of a device being used, well, that's all very well. You've handed out a device and the students are turning them on. Great. The laptop or the Chromebook is the proverbial being opened in a lesson. What about what are they actually doing on it? You know, and we often see statistics coming from software vendors that talk about number of unique logins. Great, good start. We can pull that information too, but they logged in. So what? Did they spend 30 seconds and then actually move off to some other tool? Or have they actually engaged for a period of time? And some of the really nice statistics I think that we get to see here is something called the active window time that we can pull from the Chrome and Edge browsers, which allows you to see that not only did the student actually turn it on and engage with that tool, and yes, they were clicking around, but it was the active Chrome tab or the active Edge tab for a average period of time. So now you're starting to look at, say, 2 mathematics applications, for example, to go, this one was used and had an average active window time of 15 minutes, whereas this one only had 5. What's going on there? Is there something about the engagement of that secondary tool that we need to be considering? Is there something linked to the pedagogy of the learning and teaching that's going into that second application that we want to make sure that we are talking about? Of course, one of the things to call out is that we don't present this to you in a big spreadsheet that you have to export and then, you know, spend hours in Excel trying to interpret. Hopefully you'll see from some of the graphics that we're sharing in the slides that we have to kind of augment Sean and I's chat. You can see that there's lots of graphical information. When we talk about our software, we have application profiles, just shy of 6,000 of them at the moment. And again, remember, these are focused solely on K-12, so anywhere in sort of the school realm up to 18. These are the learning tools that are being used in schools across the globe that we know of, that we've created a profile for. You can see some of the information you get here in this picture that's on the screen. You can see those global statistics, really interesting when you think about comparing them across the sort of 5 to 6 million students that we have using Digital Insight today, to know, are you on the right track with this tool? If suddenly you are like, if you're seeing that no one else is actually approved or is paying for licenses for this tool, is it the right one? Or conversely, what do our global statistics say perhaps you should be checking out? You can see a blurb on the left-hand side, really useful for some of the people who might need to access this tool, who actually don't know what Khan Academy is for or what any of these tools are for. Quite often from a data perspective, that person is not necessarily linked directly either to education or to schools and might not know what the tool is for. So giving some context there is key. You can see just behind the tags and categories as well that we break it down, all of those statistics by school. So if you're within a multi-group, you can start to see how we're getting multi-layers of information. You're not just getting that one tier, that global statistic from all Lightspeed's customers. You're not just getting that global statistic from your data across all of your schools. You can actually get it in so many more ways. And that the next tier typically is the school level. Beyond that, we can go down to the year group level. So we can have it based on different campus year groups. So we could actually compare what the year 12 experience looks like in school A versus in school B. Are they using the same types of software to achieve the same courses? And speaking of courses, we can also tag individual courses. So whether that's classrooms that are coming specifically from your student information system to know how well class A versus class B are doing in say, primary 7 in Scotland or year 6 in England. You comparing those two experiences across those category class, but even down to certificate courses for advanced hires or for IGCSE or for A levels. We're able to glean all of that information. And of course, the last level, we get right down to the student level as well. So you can pull an individual profile for those students and see what applications each student is looking for. What is their screen time, an average screen time across a period of time. Okay, coming back up from the student though to these application profiles. All of these tags that you see called out are really critical to everything that goes on and allows you to cut the data in so many more ways. You want to compare two different applications that are used for English, we've got a tag for it. Want to have some more specific tags for particular programs you're running, you can add your own. And we will talk about funding tags in a second, but understanding how all of these categories come together allow you to get even more insight into the applications that you've got, looking at specific areas and regions. None more important, I guess, and the hot topic across all of education is what's happening with AI. So if you think about this use case that we have all of these profiles, we've got these profiles for AI, generative AI tools that we were able to pull through. With one quick change of the filter that you're, and the different filtering and sorting methods you have with all of our reports, just show me the tools that are generative AI. What's happening across my school estate with these with these particular tools? Lots of schools and groups are trying to organize their generative AI policies and their approach to it, and they're coming from it from a point of view of, well, there's not that many data points out there. It's very difficult as a central strategic leader to be able to actually be in every classroom and understand which teachers have got pockets of excellent practice with implementing these tools in your schools, and which are being used and maybe shouldn't be. So just one great example of how we can pull out those tags and that information to unlock a whole set of data that I'm really confident you are interested in hearing about. And that's some of the thing about the effectiveness, but you will have seen that we've talked about licenses a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. Colin, you've just spoken about how due to the number of tools that are being used on devices, it's just impossible to truly know the effectiveness of those tools without gaining access to the data that we're presenting right now. And it's exactly the same when we want to look at like the usage and the spending and like the ROI as well. We've put this example on the screen right now to showcase what kind of usage information you'll be able to gain on a particular application. So from here, you can view the average daily users. So is that like trending in the right direction? Is it not? How do we address that? We can see the total percentage of licenses being used. So in this case, we can see that it's at 3%. That could be a concern unless it's like a new license and we might need to kind of re-educate staff members or reinvest professional development into this particular application, for example. We can see the average cost per license. We can also see when the licenses are expiring as well. And in this case, we probably want to gain sight of that renewal date as early on as possible, especially with the fact that it's got 3% of licenses being used in the last 7 days and 2,420 licenses unused. We probably wouldn't want it just to auto renew. So this kind of serves as a great central space for us to kind of gain some real high level information based on a particular application and the usage around that particular application. If we jump into the next slide, again, our goal is to make your lives easier, and we want to centralize everything into one particular dashboard when it comes to the software license information. This will ultimately allow you to gain a collective view of all of the software licenses in one place across your particular school or multiple schools if you're a multi-academy trust. I know that we've got some communes on the session today as well, but I think the expiration date is a great example of what kind of information we want to kind of be proactively providing you to prevent you from any kind of issues moving forward. So like, again, we know many organizations get stung by software just auto renewing, for example, which can be extremely frustrating if that particular application was a paid application and it actually wasn't being engaged or adopted that much within the organization. And again, this kind of just serves as a great report just to centralize that software spending in one particular place to allow you to focus on your annual expenditure moving forward, but also just your general license management moving forward as well. And then if we jump into the next slide, Colin, you then have the ability to track different funding sources. And I know that Colin kind of spoke briefly around this in a previous slide, but now we're kind of solely focusing on, you know, where is the funding coming from for this particular application? So this is for those kind of tags. Well, this is where those tags come into play, where you can kind of see exactly where the funding's coming from. You can see on the screen right now, we've got the COVID-19 adoption, which is a great one that many of our organizations used once upon a time to again identify that this was a particular application that was being used during that pandemic. And because they've tagged those particular applications with the COVID-19 adoption, since then they've been able to review that data and ultimately kind of look into the usage around that, and again, prevent auto renewing from occurring as well. But you'll have the ability to track certain applications as like grant funded applications or like government funded applications, or even like internal strategic applications to really focus on that particular application and the usage and the engagement around that particular tool. So again, it kind of streamlines all of that information you need based on that particular application or that online learning tool that's being provided by multiple funding sources.
Moving on then to the next section as we keep trucking across these 5 pillars that we're for. I think we're on number 4 now, so we're making good progress as we push through things, and we've looked at devices and we've looked at software, but we're circling back on the most important people, those students. And I mentioned this at the beginning about the connectivity experience that they have. So the Lightspeed's digital equity module, as part of Lightspeed Digital Insight, is able to run little speed tests on the devices that you're providing to students. That is the crux of what we're doing. That is the technology that sits behind it, and it's absolutely replicable, repeatable. There we go. I got the words out eventually by you. What we do see with that, however, is aggregating that all together is where we really come in. So we have that student profile. We have all of the other layers and information about the student's usage. And just by adding that connectivity, we're getting such a richer picture. We already know if a student is accessing a tool inside or outside of school hours from home. So we can already glean if some student usage is below average outside of hours, but we want to dig into why. And we suddenly find, like you can see, that we can see a really low median internet speed, that we've got students that are being flagged up with having a poor internet connection. That's a definable piece of information that you can choose to be able to select as to what would be poor in your particular scenario, or indeed those with none, if they've got no connectivity at all. My personal experience before I joined Lightspeed, I know that there are students out there who go home with a digital device and have no connectivity, and there is absolutely no way that they are going to speak up in school and say, "Miss, sir, I don't have access. I can't do that at home." And they will find excuses, or they'll be really ingenuitive with their ways to make sure they can do it. But all that we've potentially done there in an effort to support their learning and teaching and support their educational journey is introduce a different barrier. And I don't think that that's a fair approach. And I know that many of you agree. We know that digital equity and that whole connectivity experiences are a really key part to a one-to-one program. It's key to what you're doing within your digital strategies and within your approach to the communities around your schools. And it's something that you really need to consider. And Lightspeed Digital Insight can help with this equity module. Getting that information and presenting it to you in a really cohesive way is really useful to understand that. I like it for another reason as well, because it can also run those speed tests when you're in school. And having lived this one personally and experienced and being the teacher in the classroom with the devices that didn't connect, it just didn't work in my lesson, and the internet was really slow. I logged the ticket with IT, and I get a kind of the written response version of a shrug of the shoulders saying, looks all right to me. Here we're actually getting an actual impression and a data point that can be used by the IT teams in your schools and across your organizations to actually understand what's happening in school on the classroom by classroom level, on the access point by access point level, to understand, well, what is the experience as they move around the school? Why is it every time that they go to the art department, do the connections suddenly get much slower despite them being connected from the same connectivity? I think it's a really exciting piece of information that we can glean as well, just by running those little sort of speed tests from the device. So a nice little tidbit there. We get all that information, and yes, it's really useful on the student by student level, but I just wanted to call out that layering it, and if you choose to, it's an optional addition. If you choose to also provide location information, and say again, thinking about privacy and building that into all of your thinking, if you would choose, and it's off by default, to include location information, you can start to build this out geographically. So where you have a responsibility to your school community, you can start to understand, well, there's actually students coming from this geolocation, broad geolocation, I must confirm, that have a connection of a particular signal strength from particular providers, and who maybe need to be supported. And I think it's a really exciting and interesting way to be able to visualize that data when you choose to collect the location information. And I say that's just one of the aspects that we talk when we're talking about thinking about privacy and then thinking about how we've designed that into our topics. But pillar number 5 is not so much about how we've built it into our products and more about how we're helping you to think about it across your digital estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I truly love this report. And I know that a lot of compliance officers and data privacy officers love this report as well, because it ultimately mitigates so much risk for those particular personnel within the organization. The number of students who are using applications that haven't been approved by the school or Met or commune yet require the students to log in is just causing so much concern when it comes to data breaches and even just like meeting data compliance regulations. On the screen right now, again, we're utilizing those tags to create this particular report. And this report highlights the top trending applications that require students to log in that are not yet approved by the organization. So from like a compliance officer standpoint, they can quickly review this particular report and identify that, okay, I need to focus my attention and focus my time on these 20 particular applications sooner rather than later, because again, we're sharing student information to these particular applications, and we have no idea where that data is stored, how that data is handled, et cetera, et cetera. So I can quickly identify that these are probably an area of concern. I want to go ahead and complete a bit of a review on these particular applications before we kind of continue to allow students to use these applications moving forward, which is a nice segue into the next slide. We speak to organizations on a daily basis who are currently managing the review and the approval process of applications on a spreadsheet. And if for anyone on this call that's kind of handling that process on a spreadsheet, you'll be able to resonate with those frustrations pretty well. Managing this kind of process through a spreadsheet, it means it's so much harder to track. It provides a lack of insight and information around those particular applications that are in question. And we're now able to manage all of this centrally through the interface, which will allow for far more streamlined collaboration. It will allow for allow you to kind of share all of this information to other team members within the organization. It will allow you to protect student data moving forward. It will allow you to publish this through your organization as well. But ultimately, it now just kind of streamlines that whole process to allow you to focus on other tasks that matter for your particular role, and ultimately be confident that these are the applications that our students, our staff members are allowed to use moving forward, because we've vetted them and they're certainly safe from a data and compliance standpoint. And then if we jump onto the final slide from my section here, this is all around like the kind of the privacy policy and our scanning capabilities when it comes to this. And again, I seriously love this particular feature because, again, it backs up our kind of messaging around being proactive. Every Tuesday, I believe it is, the solution scans every single privacy policy associated to all of the applications that are on your devices through the organization. From there, it will then make you fully aware of what's been added in to that particular privacy policy, and that will be highlighted as green, and what's been taken away from the previous privacy policy as well, and that would be highlighted in red. This again kind of prevents you from having to manually go through all of those privacy policy updates and review those changes, which is just a pretty impossible task to kind of stay on top of. And the reality is, 9 times out of 10, it will probably be a simple change, but 1 time out of 10, it could be a change that's associated to how that particular application is handling the data moving forward, or where is that data being stored, or are they now going to be providing some of that data to another organization, for example. And if it is any of those cases, you're going to want to be made aware of that as quickly as possible to then kind of review further. So I think this is an extremely powerful and proactive approach to making sure that we're, again, doing everything that we can to help you comply with privacy regulations and ultimately protect your data through all of these applications that are being used on your devices.
And there we have it, everyone. That is the 5 pillars that we promised you. We've delivered a really high-level overview. I mean, I appreciate that you certainly didn't want to come and join a webinar for several hours, but hopefully you get the feeling from how Sean and I talk about it that we absolutely could talk about this and bore you over several hours with all of these topics. And the reality is, it's very unlikely that all 5 of these are the right fit for you, for what your current issues are. What's also highly likely is that you have a slightly different slant on each or any of these particular areas to suit you. And I just wanted to absolutely reinforce that we see going into discussions with clients or during onboarding discussions about what is the purpose of you looking at digital insight. We go in with one set of conceptions and we tease it out, and our data team who will work with you and have a chat with you and work through what are your goals here. The reality is we start to dig a little bit deeper and we find out a new use case that actually you're evaluating something in a specific high school, or you're looking at it for a particular purpose and for certain areas, and layering all that together. We're pretty certain that the real true use case for you as an individual from Digital Insight, we haven't necessarily fully talked about today. Of course, we would love to talk about it. So and we will be reaching out to you with some more information about all of this. Since you've signed up to the webinar, we'll follow up with that information. And of course, you'll be able to come back to either Sean or I, or a member of the Lightspeed team, to get further information and to discuss it more specific for your use case, and just how we can get it out and get it deployed, how you can see what it looks like. We're always happy to run a proof of concept and to let you see what happens with the data in your own environment, to get some of those high level informations. And in fact, if you're already a Lightspeed filtering customer, that's something that we can do just like that. Our absolutely magical engineers have found a way to be able to use your filtering data over the last 30 days to be able to connect it into a brand new empty Digital Insight sort of setup, and to give you all of the insights across your last 30 days of usage instantly, without you having to wait and collect it. So if you're a filter customer already of Lightspeed on the call, and you want to reach out and have a look at that, we can turn that on for you overnight, and you can get a good view into what's happening. So that's a little aside. Now, Sean, I did see a couple of questions flowing in. We did have time for that. We do have time perhaps just for a couple. It's hard because, as I say, some of them are a little bit specific that are there around your use cases. First one I wanted to talk on was how does this capture the data, which is a really good question. And I think Sean mentioned it, albeit briefly, which was around the idea that the little agent that's installed on the device. So that's the premise of where we are. It's the premise of most of Lightspeed's solutions. We see that as a really strong way to collect the data that we need to give you the functionality that we do. So we install a little agent using standard device management tools to be able to collect that information and to be able to do what needs to happen. But it's super small and invisible to the user. So that's the first question that's in there. And the other one that I can see is around the aspect of student data privacy and applications. So it's talking about, can you share the application, approved applications? Absolutely. There was a picture that showed the bar of the settings, but the idea is that you can create what we call a public list, but you maintain that list within the tool behind the scenes. What do you make public is completely up to you. So all of the fields and information can be customized. So perhaps you don't want to share probably the internal comment field, or you don't want to share where you've uploaded the DPIA necessarily. So you can choose to turn on and off certain fields. But you can also choose that there's maybe some approved applications that you don't necessarily want to publish either. So you can also choose which tools appear on that public list. And we see those use cases for two things: either to communicate with teachers primarily. So hello, Mr. and Mrs. Teacher, this is the list of 20 applications that we have fully reviewed, that we fully commit to, that we pay for, that we want you to use. And of course, in big red letters, these are the ones that we do not want you to use if we've marked them as not approved. So that's the other side of things there that allows you to do that. The other one is to share it with parents. And, I've dug a little bit into GDPR, and it's not exactly clear, but you could interpret Article 30 of GDPR, where a data controller, that's the schools, that's you guys, have a responsibility to share the data processing and where data is being used with the schools. So that's the idea, that you're sharing that directly with parents and having it in a more public way. It's, again, another use that we can see for that particular area. So with that, we're going to wrap up, and we're going to say thank you so much for joining us. We've had a great time talking about all of these areas. I certainly have. I love talking about data, and I love talking about what Digital Insight can do. And I get quite passionate that we have an awful lot more customers across the UK, across Western Europe, further afield as well, that we really need to be talking to and getting these data to. It's really important that you're making data-informed decisions. And as I say, we would be delighted to discuss with any of you as to how you can make greater use of the Lightspeed Digital Insight tool to further those goals. So, Sean, thank you for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all together. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much, everyone, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.